I always thought the scariest moment of my life would be the day I got married. You know, the nerves, the attention, the pressure. But it wasn't. Not even close. It was the moment my ex walked into my wedding, uninvited, wearing a blood-red dress like she was stepping onto a runway. All eyes turned. My heart stopped. And in that instant, I realized she wanted this moment. The chapel had gone dead silent, the kind of silence that presses against your eardrums. No music, no whispers, just the soft sound of Emma's heels pausing mid-step as she came down the aisle with her father. I was standing there, frozen at the altar, staring at a ghost I thought I'd buried years ago. Vanessa. She didn't walk in like someone who wasn't supposed to be there. She walked in like it was her wedding. Chin high, shoulders back, that same smirk she used to wear when she knew she was about to ruin something. My hands trembled at my sides. I remember clenching the small velvet box that held Emma's ring. My palms were sweating. I felt the weight of 100 stares shift from her to me. And then she started walking down the aisle. Not slowly, not cautiously, but confidently, like she belonged, like she had something to say. My mother let out a soft gasp from the front row. Emma's father turned to me with a confused, protective stare. Emma. Oh God, Emma. She had stopped walking. Her eyes locked on mine, not angry, not afraid, just searching, like she was silently asking, "Do I need to worry?" I wanted to scream, to tell her no, that she was safe, that this wasn't going to end like the mess Vanessa came from. But I couldn't move. My legs were rooted to the floor, heart pounding like a drum in my ears. And then Vanessa opened her mouth. "I thought weddings were supposed to be honest," she said, her voice slicing through the silence like a blade. "Or did you forget to tell everyone the truth, Jake?" The truth? I felt the color drain from my face. My chest tightened, like the air had been sucked out of the room. My mind raced. What is she doing? What is she planning? No one said a word. The pastor looked at me, frozen mid-step. The guests shifted in their seats, uncomfortable. Some looked angry, others curious. Everyone was waiting for me to speak, to deny it, to defend myself. But instead, I walked toward her. Each step felt heavy. My heartbeat thudded in my throat. My mouth was dry, but I forced myself to keep moving until I was standing right in front of her, just a few feet away. I could see it now, the wild glint in her eyes, the smug smile tugging at her lips, the satisfaction of being the center of attention again. And in that moment, something inside me clicked. I took the mic from the officiant's stand. My hands were still shaking, but I gripped it hard, grounding myself, and I looked her straight in the eye. "I'm glad you're here," I said. A ripple moved through the crowd. I could feel the confusion behind me, the tension thickening in the air. Even Vanessa blinked. I could see her mouth twitch slightly, uncertain for the first time. But I wasn't done. I turned slightly so my voice carried to everyone, heart pounding in my chest, breath shallow but steady. "Let's tell them what you did." You could hear a pin drop. Emma was still halfway down the aisle. She hadn't moved. But I saw her hand slowly lower from her father's arm. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but didn't. Not yet. I saw Vanessa shift her weight, her confidence faltering. Her arms crossed over her chest like armor. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. And I just stood there, letting the silence build. Because this time, the story would be mine to tell. To understand why that moment hit so hard, you need to know what came before it. 2 years ago, I was a completely different man. I used to think love meant intensity, fireworks, passion so loud it drowned out logic. That's what it was like with Vanessa. She swept in like a storm, fast, overwhelming, unpredictable. At first, I mistook her chaos for chemistry. She made me feel like I was the center of her world, until I wasn't. One moment, she'd be clinging to me like she couldn't breathe without me, and the next, she'd disappear for days and come back acting like I had done something wrong. She could cry on command, twist any situation, and somehow make it all my fault. I used to lie awake at night, wondering if I was going crazy or if I really was the problem. There was a night I'll never forget. I found messages on her phone, flirty, shady stuff with a guy from her office. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She smiled, said I was too emotionally fragile to handle someone like her. I remember standing there, numb, while she told me I was lucky to have her at all. That's when something broke in me. It still took me months to leave. And even after I did, she found ways to crawl back in. The late-night calls, the "I miss you" texts, the fake emergencies. She even showed up at my apartment at 3 a.m. once, crying and barefoot, saying she'd swallowed a bottle of pills, only to admit later she hadn't taken anything. Just wanted to see if I'd still come. I did. But the guilt and manipulation eventually gave way to exhaustion. And finally, silence. When I met Emma, I didn't believe people like her existed. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't loud. She didn't try to fix me. She listened. She saw me. I'll never forget our third date. We were sitting on the floor of her apartment eating Thai food, and she looked at me, totally serious, and said, "I think you're used to confusing love with chaos. Let's not do that." She didn't just want me. She wanted peace with me. That changed everything. For the first time, I felt safe. Our relationship grew slowly, intentionally. We talked about everything: my past, my insecurities, my fear that one day Vanessa might resurface. Emma never judged me. She never acted threatened. She just stayed solid. It's like she knew I needed steady ground to learn how to stand again. When I proposed to her a year later, I'd never been more certain of anything. The planning wasn't extravagant. Just 80 people. People we loved. A rustic venue in the countryside. Wooden beams, warm string lights. The smell of lavender hanging in the summer air. My mom cried the first time she walked through it. Emma's dad hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. Everything was perfect. That morning, I woke up early, too nervous to sleep. I walked the grounds by myself, took slow breaths, whispered the vows to myself under the trees like some nervous teenager. My best man, Marcus, joked that I looked like I was about to propose to a tree. But really, I just wanted the moment to feel real, to anchor it in my body. I remember getting dressed, adjusting my tie for the 5th time, staring into the mirror and thinking, "You made it. You're finally free from the past." I believed it. Right up until the moment the music started and Emma stepped into the aisle, glowing in that lace dress that made my knees weak. And Vanessa came crashing through the door behind her like a wrecking ball made of resentment. The past hadn't stayed in the past. And the worst part? Somewhere deep down, I think I always knew she wouldn't let go that easily. I don't know if you've ever felt time stop. Not slow down. Stop. Like the room is frozen, but your heart is sprinting, your skin too tight, like your body isn't sure whether to fight or run. That's what it felt like the moment Vanessa walked into the chapel. She stood at the back of the aisle, like she was waiting for applause. I remember the way she tilted her head slightly, that same smug tilt she used to give me when she'd caught me doubting her and knew she had me cornered. Her red dress clung to her like it had been chosen specifically to demand attention. She looked like a walking warning sign. I should have been thinking about Emma. But all I could think was, she actually did it. She actually came. 100 people turned in their chairs, like a wave of confusion rippling through the room. My cousin dropped his phone. The officiant stammered mid-sentence and went silent. I heard someone whisper, "Is that his ex?" Vanessa took one slow step forward. Her heels clicked with this deliberate rhythm that felt almost theatrical. She wasn't rushing. She was savoring this. She wanted us to squirm. And we did. Emma's hand slipped from her father's arm. She wasn't crying. Not yet. But her face. God, her face. It was like a painting cracking. Her eyes were locked on mine, not accusing, just wounded, like she was trying to convince herself that whatever was happening had nothing to do with her, that she was still safe. And that's what broke me. Vanessa smiled, paused halfway down the aisle, and said loudly, "I guess no one invited the truth to this wedding." The air was sucked from the room. I took a step forward. Marcus tried to grab my arm, whispering, "Jake, don't." She wants this. But I shook him off. I wasn't walking toward her for her. I was walking toward her for Emma, for everyone. Because for 2 years, I let Vanessa run wild in my past. But not today. I felt my heartbeat pounding behind my eyes. My jaw clenched. My shoulders were locked tight like I'd been holding tension since the moment she entered my life. My tongue felt thick, but I forced myself to speak. "Why are you here, Vanessa?" She blinked, mock innocent. "To stop you from lying, to stop her from marrying someone who keeps secrets." "Secrets?" I said, my voice shaking. "What secrets?" she smirked. "Don't pretend. You told me you still loved me, that marrying her was a mistake. You remember that night? You showed up at my place crying, didn't you?" I felt the heat rise in my face. A collective murmur stirred through the crowd. I could hear Emma's mother whispering, "What is she talking about?" I could feel the panic crawling into my throat. But that's the thing about Vanessa. She always had a way of spinning just enough truth into a lie that people believed her. There had been a night I drove past her apartment. I didn't go in. I didn't even get out of the car. It was during a rough patch with Emma. Not because of anything she did, but because I was still unpacking the baggage Vanessa had left me with. I was scared of getting too happy, too close, and I almost let that fear take the wheel. But I didn't knock on Vanessa's door. I sat there for 10 minutes, then drove home. And the next day, I told Emma about it. I was ashamed, but I told her. So I stood there, watching Vanessa weaponize my worst doubt in front of everyone I loved. I could feel the judgment, the confusion. Emma still hadn't moved. Her lips were slightly parted, eyes locked on me. I had a choice. I could let Vanessa steer the story like she always had, or I could reclaim it. My voice came out lower than I expected, steady but sharp. "You're right," I said. "Let's tell them everything." Vanessa froze, and in that crack of silence, where her smirk faltered and her eyes flickered, I knew. She hadn't come to reveal the truth. She'd come to rewrite it. I stared at her for what felt like forever. Vanessa, standing there like a bomb waiting to go off. Her smile wavered, just slightly, and I realized something. She hadn't planned for me to stand up to her. She thought I'd shut down, break down, try to drag her out and make a bigger scene. She wanted chaos, because chaos was the only place she ever had power. But I wasn't that man anymore. I turned and walked back toward the altar, my pulse still thudding in my ears. I picked up the mic we were going to use for our vows. My fingers wrapped around it like it was a lifeline. I didn't even know what I was going to say until I started speaking. "Let's tell them what you did, Vanessa." Her eyes narrowed. The crowd fell into a deeper silence. Not just the kind where people stop talking, but the kind where no one even dares breathe. I could feel every set of eyes on me. I looked over at Emma. She hadn't sat down. Her eyes were wide and glassy, but she didn't look away. Good. I want you all to hear this, I said, my voice steady now. Because this is my past. This is the woman I dated for 2 years, and I want to tell the truth before she tells another version of it. Vanessa scoffed, but didn't interrupt. Not yet. So I kept going. Vanessa and I broke up because she lied, constantly, because she used emotional threats to keep me close. She faked a pregnancy. She pretended to overdose just to get me to come back. She sent anonymous messages to Emma when we first got together, trying to scare her off. She even posed as my assistant and emailed my clients pretending to be me, trying to ruin my business. I saw my aunt's hand fly to her mouth. My friend Chris looked stunned, but I didn't stop. Yeah, there was a night I drove past her place. I won't lie, I was struggling. I was scared of losing someone real, someone kind, because I didn't think I deserved it after everything Vanessa made me believe about myself. But I didn't knock. I didn't go in. I went home. And I told Emma the next day. I paused. Vanessa's arms were crossed now, her mouth tight, like she was trying to swallow a scream. And if you still think I'm lying, I said, turning to her, show them the messages. Show them any proof. Go ahead. Pull up the text where I said I loved you. Pull up the timestamp, the one that magically disappeared right after Emma and I got engaged. Her lip twitched. There it was. She had nothing. I didn't come here to fight, I said, softer now, turning slightly to the crowd. I came here to marry the woman I love, the woman who helped me find peace again. And if my past has to stand in front of everyone for that to happen, then fine. I'll own it. But I won't run from it. Silence. No one moved. Then, behind me, I heard the soft click of heels. Emma. She stepped forward slowly, her veil swaying with the motion, her face unreadable. I looked at her and tried to brace myself for whatever she'd say. She walked up beside me, gently reached for the mic, and held it for a second. Then she leaned in and said, clear and calm, "Let's get married." The crowd broke into murmurs. Some clapped, a few gasped, but all I could do was exhale. My knees nearly buckled with the weight of it all. Vanessa turned sharply on her heel. No grand exit, no final monologue, just the hollow sound of her leaving the way she came. Alone. I didn't even watch her go. Emma took my hand and whispered, "You don't owe anyone your past. But thank you for not hiding it." And I realized, this wasn't about revenge or winning. It was about reclaiming my voice, my truth, my peace, and finally I had all three. There's a moment, right after the chaos breaks, where your body doesn't know how to stop bracing for impact. Even after Vanessa had stormed out, even after Emma said, "Let's get married," I felt like I was standing in a war zone long after the bombs had stopped falling. I looked around the room, expecting judgment, or pity, or second-guessing. But what I saw was something entirely different. Understanding. My best man, Marcus, gave me a small nod, tight-lipped but proud. My mother's eyes were glassy, but she looked relieved. And Emma's father, he walked up to me, clapped a firm hand on my shoulder and said, "You did right by her and by yourself." It should have been the end of the drama. But even as we picked the ceremony back up, even as Emma took my hand at the altar and the music resumed, I knew something still needed to be said. Not for Vanessa. For me. For years, I had carried her shame like it was mine. The officiant asked if we were ready to exchange vows. Emma smiled, warm, steady, and nodded. But before I could speak the words I'd written weeks ago, I folded the paper in my pocket and looked up at her. "Can I say something first?" I asked. Emma gave a slight, encouraging nod. The guests leaned forward. Some of them probably expected another revelation, maybe even more drama. But I wasn't speaking to them. I was speaking to the boy I used to be, the one who spent nights lying awake wondering why love hurt so much, the one who thought being controlled was a sign of passion, the one who thought staying meant strength. I took a breath and spoke directly from the heart. I used to think love was something you survived, that it had to test you, break you, pull you apart so you could prove it was real. I used to think chaos meant depth, and I stayed in something toxic because I believed pain was a form of intimacy. Emma's eyes shimmered. I could feel her squeeze my hand. But then I met you, and you showed me that love doesn't have to shout to be heard, that it doesn't threaten to leave when things get hard. You didn't fix me. You didn't try. You just stood beside me while I learned to fix myself. And because of that, I know this is real. Emma smiled, tears forming, but she was still composed, radiating calm. That was who she was. Then she leaned in and whispered her vows, voice low and trembling but sure. She didn't mention Vanessa. She didn't have to. Her words were all about choosing each other, not as perfect people, but as people who chose truth over image, connection over performance, peace over spectacle. And then, just like that, we were pronounced husband and wife. As we kissed, the crowd erupted in applause. Not just polite, ceremonial clapping. It was loud, unrestrained, genuine. I think people weren't just celebrating the wedding. They were celebrating the truth, the audacity of honesty in a world that prefers pretty lies. When we walked back down the aisle, hand in hand, the light pouring through the chapel windows felt different. Warmer, lighter, as if the storm had truly passed. But the moment that solidified it, etched it in my bones, came later that evening. During the reception, after the speeches and dancing, I stepped outside for a breath of air. The stars were sharp above us, the air finally cooling as night settled in. Emma followed me out. She wrapped her arms around my waist, resting her cheek against my back. "You okay?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Better than okay. Just thinking." "About her? About who I used to be, and how I almost didn't make it here." She didn't say anything right away. She just held me tighter. "You did, though," she said. "And you brought you with you. That's what matters." And standing there under the stars, I realized the real climax wasn't Vanessa crashing the wedding. It wasn't even the moment I grabbed the mic. It was this. Quiet, undramatic, safe. The realization that I was finally in a love that didn't demand war to prove its worth. It's been 8 months since the wedding. Sometimes I still catch myself thinking about that day. Not the vows or the cake or even the first dance, but the moment Vanessa walked in. How everything hung in the air for a few heartbeats, like the future was about to tip one way or another. And how I stood there, terrified but calm, knowing that this time I wasn't going to flinch. I'm not proud of that part of my story, but I'm not ashamed of it anymore either. For a long time, I carried a quiet shame about the things I tolerated, the gaslighting, the guilt trips, the manipulation. I stayed in a relationship that hollowed me out because I thought love meant endurance. I thought that if I just proved I could handle it, if I held on long enough, I'd be rewarded with something better. But here's what I've learned. Love isn't supposed to make you smaller. It doesn't ask you to shrink, apologize for your needs, or question your own reality. Love expands you. And when I met Emma, I didn't recognize that at first. I kept waiting for the catch, the test, the emotional landmine. But she never played that game. She didn't walk on eggshells. She didn't make me feel like I was one mistake away from losing her. She just showed up. Again and again. And maybe the reason Vanessa came to the wedding wasn't just to hurt me, but to remind me of what I survived. Not that I needed her reminder. Every day I wake up next to Emma is proof enough. People ask me sometimes what I would have done if Emma had walked away that day, if she had believed Vanessa, if she had left me standing there. And the truth is, I think I would have understood. But she didn't. Not because she was naive, but because she knew me. Because I let her see me long before that day, mess and all. And I think that's what saved me. Not just being loved, but being known. Fully. Flaws, past, all of it. There's this moment that stands out from the honeymoon. We were sitting on a beach in Portugal, watching the sun dip into the ocean. The air smelled like salt and coconut, and for the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I leaned over and asked her, half joking, "Still glad you married me?" She smiled without looking away from the water. "Especially because of what you've been through," she said. "It means I know you won't take peace for granted." That stuck with me. Because she was right. After surviving something destructive, peace can feel unfamiliar, almost boring. But now I crave that quiet, that consistency, the simple joy of being able to trust the ground I stand on. It's not boring, it's sacred. And to anyone listening who's been where I've been, let me say this. You're not broken for having loved the wrong person. You're not weak for staying too long. You're not stupid for hoping they'd change. You're human. And maybe like me, you just needed to learn the hard way what love isn't. So when the real thing comes along, you finally know how to hold on to it. Vanessa hasn't tried to contact me since the wedding, and I think that says everything. Because the power she once had was rooted in my silence, my fear, my confusion. But that power broke the moment I stood in front of everyone I loved and said, "This is what happened." And I'm not hiding anymore. Today, I'm not the man who's afraid of being misunderstood. I'm not the man trying to fix the unfixable. I'm not walking on eggshells to keep someone happy who was never happy to begin with. I'm just me, and I'm married to someone who loves that version of me. If I could go back and change the wedding, erase Vanessa from it entirely, I wouldn't. Because that moment didn't ruin our day. It revealed it. It revealed the strength of our love, the depth of our truth, and the peace I spent years chasing. Now I wake up next to it every morning,